Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's April. If you weren't paying attention to the schedule, calendar has cropped up on you. April 11th, 2023, and this is another edition of the MSP Initiative live. Not anywhere specific, but just live to your computer and hopefully to a podcast near you. This session and every other session of MSP Initiative is recorded. So when people give out their cell phone numbers at the end of these things, you know where to go back and check them. Believe it or not, that happens. MSPinitiative.com. Here's our new website. So you'll see sessions here is where podcast and video format of these sessions go. There's a Community Minds event we're doing in Denver in August. So if you're not doing anything on the 13th and 14th of August before, back to school kicks in and the football season starts, come and join us in August. We have a lot of good expert people that are coming in. More to be added to that list, but effectively we're bringing people from around the community to basically get you past the PowerPoint slide, maybe teach you a few things. And to be honest with you, I think that's well needed. Then we have our crazy list of parties, which I know Brian, who's on the call, will love. We'll introduce him in a second. Next month in Prague, approximately 30 days from today, we'll be doing a party around Enable's European conference called Empower. In June, we'll be doing one around DattoCon and Kaseya's Dublin event. In, I believe, October, there'll be DattoCon Dublin, or I'm sorry, Miami. So that's coming up. This is a second event at the Taylor Business Group Big in August as well. So we're doing this in Fort Lauderdale. And then lastly, the one that, closes out the year. Last year for us was the All-American Rejects. We flew into town, believe it or not, during apparently a hurricane before the airport shut down, and somehow got what may be the best party of all time in the books, hard to top. Two more things. Our community offers are just vendors that have thrown some cool offers out there. Maybe Brian will throw one up later on. And our industry calendar, because quite frankly, it's hard to keep track of all of these events. So we just have collaborated with everyone to just pull all their dates into one place, if nothing other than to keep ourselves in check. If you're missing something on this schedule, feel free to submit an event and we will happily post it. All that being said, Tuesday. How you doing, Brian? Good. Oh, and we go back a long time with Brian to things that we almost forget, but
probably shouldn't talk about either.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Brian from Quotewerks, who has been around the block for a long time. That's not a knock on you, Brian, by the way. That just means that you've been in the trench and you know what it looks like and feels like. And it's been sometimes, like, as all things go, history does repeat itself, doesn't it?
Definitely does. Definitely does.
So for anyone that hasn't run into you before, Brian, why don't you give a little history, a little walk down memory lane, right? I mean, you've had a pretty cool story throughout the sandbox, I like to call it, channel. So please do tell. Where did you start? How did you get to where you are at? And then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so how I started was definitely interesting. I started off actually having my own, being a VAR myself as an IT consultant. I used to pull wire, built computers, installed software for small businesses, as well as like just friends around the street and whatnot. So that's where I started. And then, I ended up working for a military contractor in in college as a software developer. And while I was in college, I started off in computer science. Didn't want to show up to class, so I ended up going a different direction and ended up with a criminal justice degree as well as psychology.
Huh.
So yeah, so might explain a few things now, George. But so started down that direction, and I decided, what, maybe law enforcement is not the right thing for me. And I started looking at my different options, and I started with a small software company called Aspire Technologies. Nobody knew about them because John Liu, who founded the company, moved from Chicago to Orlando a month prior, and he had like something like 1,000 users, which is great. but it was very small. So I started off on his dining room table doing technical support. So 23 years later, I am still with the same company, and we now have over 88,000 users of the software.
Wow.
Exactly.
So number one, I gotta really commend you, by the way. In this day and age, like back in the day, like when our parents were in it, like they'd only like get 1, 2, 3 jobs in their entire career.
Yep.
You've got 23 years in the same place. Congratulations, sir.
Yeah, I'm a dinosaur. But really, I mean, the interesting thing about my position is that my position's always changed and migrated through the years. Like I said, I started off into technical support. I moved over into development. And then I started going into events because there was nobody else here that could do events. So that's what I ended up doing. And then I moved over into business development, which is what I really like doing, working with customers, working with partners, trying to figure out a solution. And because I am a developer, I'm able to take all of that and that information and create a solution for everybody.
That's awesome. That is very awesome. So let me take a quick trip down history lane myself. So you guys were around before like even the IT nations of the world, popped up on the calendar, weren't you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, it just, I started, like I said, in 2000. So it's been a long time. We were actually one of the very first quoting tools ever, not just in the VAR and MSP space, but ever. So I think there were like 2 or 3 different quoting tools when I started. And now, the space has definitely erupted, which has been good and bad for us at the same time.
No, 100%. There's still IT and managed services companies that are doing quotes on Microsoft Word. Do you believe that?
It still surprises me. It really does. I mean, especially if they are purchasing through distribution at all, it makes no sense to me. If you're just doing, a services contract, I could maybe see you using Word, but even then it's kind of, but with us, what we do is we make it so easy to purchase from distribution. You can see all of your pricing and availability in one place for all the vendors and distributors that you work with, including even like Amazon Business, for instance, and some of the other companies out there like Newegg and CDW. All of that pricing is in one place. So you can actually see that, compare it, see what's in stock, what's not in stock, as well as when the availability is going to happen as well. So we make it very easy to purchase product.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon, man. A lot of people just go there because it's easy and it shows up the next day.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that it's the best price, but it's surely there.
Well, you'd be surprised. So, we started working with Amazon Business like almost 4 years ago, I think now. And, for some of the smaller MSPs that don't do a lot of business with like TD Synnex or D&H, sometimes the pricing is going to be better. And the best part is you don't have to worry about that free shipping minimum either.
Yeah, no, that's true, especially with the Prime. Definitely take advantage of that 100%.
Exactly.
I feel like a lot of people think that the best way to handle quoting is with some stacked in tool with their CRM system.
Right.
And there's a lot of them out there, right? CRM, PSA, ERP, right? We can interchange those acronyms and, some have very basic solutions. Some have, maybe more advanced ones, but I feel like everybody just thinks like it's you just get that in the same place. Why isn't that the answer?
Yeah, so for us, what really put us on the map were our integrations. So when we look at things, we look at the whole holistic view of a solution. Whereas, sometimes we'll say, like, say you're using QuickBooks, for instance, that's, the next logical step, as opposed to using like Word to create your quote or proposal. So great, now you're in a database, but yeah, you're creating that quote in QuickBooks, but now, that part that you're quoting needs to exist inside of QuickBooks. So, and how did that part get into that solution? You're not just, it's not like it just magically appears, especially if you're using QuickBooks. You're having to manually type that in or copy and paste that in. And then, we've all been in the industry long enough to know that hey, that part that we just quoted, it's now no longer the part that we're selling. And we never actually sold that item. We just quoted it. So now we're cluttering our accounting software, which is
Yeah.
not something you want to be doing. Or you can take it to the next step. So maybe you're using a CRM. Well, guess what? Now you're running into the same problem. How is that getting in there? A lot of people use, like a HubSpot, for instance, for, their, or Salesforce.com for their sales CRM, for instance. And that's great, but then you still run into those same problems. So that's why you'd want to be looking at a true quoting platform, especially one that has integrations, especially ones that can grow with you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's a lot of interesting scenarios, right? Like, let's say I have a very intense project and that project is built out in stages, being able to, like, number one, set that up inside of the same document that they're going to use to approve everything. And then maybe even set up the ability to collect that first down payment or first segment of things. And then obviously, like, I don't want to have to manually go and post that, right? I need that to go somewhere. So that's my QuickBooks potentially. And then, like, getting all of this information to actually, not just be in, like, at some point I need to actually do work, right? Like, I don't know if it's a project management tool. I don't know if it's a PSA tool, a ticketing system, but like at some point people need to do things, right?
Right.
But before we even get to the doing things part, things also need to be ordered. So, like, instead of sending that to somebody to start procuring things separately, you can even tie that part in.
Exactly.
So now my journey turned into multiple people and stretching out the time involvement required to just get it off the ground into a little bit of automation and then parking the information once it's done.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting thing too, is like a lot of times people see Quotewerks, for instance, and they just think quotes, but we do so much more than just the quoting aspect. We do everything, like I said, integrating with the vendors, but you were talking about the project, for instance. So with Quotewerks, we have a system called Quote Valet, which allows you to electronically deliver a quote to your customer. But then they can digitally sign and accept that quote. And then, like you were saying, with the phases, you can collect that down payment. You can collect, phase one of that project, phase two, and as it goes on, you can continue collecting money for that project. And we're not just talking about credit cards, especially with the fees that you've got with that, but we work with ACH as well. If you work with like a leasing company, say Great America, for instance, we're able to create that lease for you, including the lease documents and getting the approval process all in that one solution.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And then, say you are using a PSA like Autotask or ConnectWise, we're going to be able to create those opportunities for you in there as well. And then we're going to take that on to the next step. Let's say it's one. Let's go ahead. Well, you have to do the work, right? So we're going to automatically create those tickets for you as well. So that way your service techs know what they're supposed to be doing as well.
I mean, so basically what this tool sounds like, or platform that is it lets me scale.
Exactly.
So, like, if you could start off as a one-man, operation, and like it's all you. Well, number one, how much time do you have? Probably the least amount of time at that size, right? So, like, I need to be able to do a lot of things in a short window, or else I can't get to the good stuff, right? But then as you build and you become a larger org, now I'm saving a lot of people time across the entire business without having to get stuck. Because, like, let's face it, Brian, you've seen all the skeletons in the closet, so to say. Sales always gets stuck somewhere in the quoting and presentation of the quote process.
Exactly. And
Always.
yeah, definitely. And that's part of where, our Quote Valet piece comes into play too, because it's not just delivering that quote to the customer, but you get notified the first time they look at it, each additional time they look at it, as they make changes on that quote. But beyond that, it'll also act as like an assistant for you as well. And what I mean by that is you get notified, say, 7 days after you've delivered that quote to the customer, and they haven't even looked at it yet. So you've got that extra little tickler there. Also, on the payment side, say the customer accepted that quote, but they haven't made their first down payment yet, you can get notified as well. And then to really make that full digital assistant, not only are you going to get notified, but they're going to get notified as well, saying, hey, you accepted this quote, that's great, but you haven't made payment yet, so we're not going to do anything. So
and then the next bottleneck is always like actually ordering the stuff.
Right, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I love the square peg round hole, by the way, where it's like, and maybe there's no real answer to this, but like, let's say you quoted something and it took a while for your customer to actually like, do their part.
Right.
And you go back to order it, and then like, it's not even available anymore.
Right.
And now you're on delay, and now you're stuck for a while.
Well, and that's where working with more than one vendor comes into play. And that's something that we've, been talking up for a long time. A lot of people, they'll have like a primary vendor and then like a secondary vendor. With everything that happened with COVID and everything else, that changed. People have been adding more vendors to handle supply chain issues and whatnot. And one of the things that's nice about our procurement side when it comes to the electronic ordering with like TD Synnex or D&H or Ingram, Amazon Business, you're able to see all the items that you need to order and then see what the availability is at the time you're trying to place that order, and then swap the vendor, because in your example, you quoted it from, D&H. Well, now they're out of stock. What are you going to do? But Ingram is going to have it in stock next week. There you go. So you're able to change on the fly and combine orders. So you're getting that free shipping minimum. And we make that so much easier when it comes to the procurement side. And then we're going to create that purchase order for you inside of ConnectWise or Autotask or QuickBooks or whatever you're using.
I got to tell you, it's like multiple check boxes of like human being bottlenecking, right?
Yeah,
how many times do you even like we forget the quoting part of it, right? It's like, hey, I sent in a quote, or I went onto the portal and it didn't have the exact thing I needed. So then I had to reach out to a rep, I had to ask a question, and like all that back and forth. Like I'm just, to me, right? Like I always do got to pick up the phone and call and send the email, or else you're never going to get anything from these people. And that's still the case today, by the way. That hasn't changed. So like, it's just interesting now how like, what we've done, what I'm hearing is multiple check boxes of bottlenecks solved, a scaling tool, and somebody, like almost a safety net, right? Because you forget to communicate with people, right? So that's important. And then lastly, it's like, hey, like if I actually have multiple people who are in the sales seat, right? Like let's say I'm not the only person quoting in the company, right? And the larger you get, the more often that is. Number one, it's almost like bar rescue, right? If everybody doesn't present their stuff the same way, then like you have an inconsistent experience, number one. So like I want to make my drink the same way. It should be the same recipe no matter who the bartender is. Then also like I can actually get some sort of tracking metrics on who's doing what.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and I think that consistency is really important as well, because if you're purchasing from, we'll just say Ingram Micro, for instance, there's thousands of different, we'll just say HP configurations for a computer, for instance. So with us, what we do is we make it so you can have company-wide favorites. So that way you're always selling those same systems over and over again. And then you can even have your own personal favorites. So that way you have that consistency. And then the other nice thing is everybody's using the same templates, so what does that quote look like? So if Joe sends the quote out, it looks one way. And when Sarah sends it out, it looks the same way. Look at that. You've got that branding consistency across the entire company line. And then the other thing that's great too is the fact that you have the ability to, like you said, track, or you have an approval process. So like, in our own company, we use Quotewerks ourselves. And when I bring on a new sales rep, what we do is we actually make it so any quote that goes out that's over $1 has to get approved. So that way, yeah.
What are you selling under $1? Bubblegum?
Well, that way we make sure everything has to get approved before it goes out. that
Okay.
way we've got that training metric. And then we go ahead, after the first couple of quotes, then we increase that up and so on and so forth, until it gets to a certain amount. And then like anything over that amount has to get approved no matter what, no matter how long that rep has been with us, sort of thing. So
This has to help with commissions, obviously, right? Like, because at the end
yeah,
of the day, if I'm basing what I'm paying my reps, on, and obviously labor versus hardware versus software subscription, different profitability and like different math, right? But
yep.
like at the end of the day, your system's tracking that, right? What you're selling versus what you're buying, what the price is. I'm sure you can tell if you're actually making money off a deal versus losing, right?
Oh
Like
yeah, definitely.
help in the commission side.
Yeah, and the other thing that's nice about that too is, you're able, like you said, you're able to track that. You can also have it so reports are automatically sent out to your sales manager, every night or whatever you want to do. So that way they can see that. They also have dashboards within the system, and they can even, bring up their cell phone and look at the dashboard there as well to make sure that, sales are on point for one particular rep as well as for the entire company as well.
Yeah, no, that's so important because I know the back office people, right? The people who are making sure it makes it into QuickBooks are the same probably people that are figuring out what people are owed for their sales, right? And
Yep.
like that's the other part, right? It takes forever sometimes if you're doing things manually to figure out what's the final number.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the other thing too with Quotewerks is, it is, you can be customer facing with Quotewerks. You can also be, the back office people are also using it as well. It's not just, that simple sales tool. It's that overall solution.
Somebody asked me to ask you about an RFQ system. What's
Yeah.
that about?
Yeah. So vendor RFQ is something that we launched, think it was about a year and a half, 2 years ago now. And what that allows you to do is actually consolidate all of your vendor communication in one spot. So, we talk a lot about the quoting process, to your customers, but there's the quoting that happens before that as well, right? There's
100.
the,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, especially with vendors that don't have like an electronic interface to be able to get like API costs and availability and stuff like that, or maybe you've got a larger deal. So what you can do is you can actually say, hey, I've got this great deal I've got. I need, 7 systems and, it's going to be in 3 different locations. And you can send out an RFQ like as a shotgun blast out to all of your vendors and say, hey, what can you do for me? And you can track all of that, and you can have communication back and forth in that one spot, as opposed to having to go emails back and forth because, emails get lost. And then you're talking about, being able to stay on top of that as well. So you've got that dashboard, that one panel where you can see all of that. And then you can actually award that deal to that vendor, and that gets locked in, and then that price that they quoted you then gets back into the quote and Quotewerks, and it's all tied together.
Wow. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about you as the person putting out the RFQ, right? Usually you're
Yeah.
the one responding to the RFQ. So I didn't even think about the reverse of that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool, actually. That saves you a lot of time. And quite frankly, am I allowed to use the words Fisher Price?
Actually, my great grandmother used to work for Fisher Price, so I think we can do that.
Okay, I'll take that. I mean, part of the big problem when you're bringing people into the organization is training, right? I mean, like getting them to understand the process to ultimately get to what you're trying to get them to do for you. And let's face it, some people in some businesses, and I've been around the block a long time too, it's like a game for them, right? They're like, oh no, I can get a better price. And then like all of a sudden you're a half day into just getting a price on a computer that like really you're only going to make $50 on anyway. Like you lost your time, right? But some people love that science. Like this kind of takes all of that rat race stuff out of the mix. Yeah, that's interesting. And then you also, I don't know if you still do it because I know a lot of people still do business with Dell.
Mhm.
Like the whole way that they do their quoting, right? Like it's a
Yep.
little bit different than everybody else.
Yeah, so we still work with Dell, as long as you're a Dell Premier partner and you are able to, through their punch out system, you're able to log into your portal, and you can either import an existing quote that a Dell sales rep created for you, or you can actually create and configure your own system through your portal on Dell, and then go ahead and bring that into the quote in Quotewerks as well. And then assuming that you win that quote, the customer accepts that quote, you can then place the order with Dell as well.
That's cool. How pretty can you make these, right? I know a lot of people are like, hey, really want it to look really slick. I want it to feel modern.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with Quotewerks, you can make it look however you want. It's completely customizable. Some people like very basic stuff. They just want like a single line item with the list price and then what the customer is going to be paying. That's great. Other people, they want a full MSP contract with everything already filled out for them, with pictures and spec sheets and terms and conditions and all of that. You can do that as well. So you can do a 1-page quote, you can do a 50-page proposal. It just depends on what you need for that particular job on that particular day.
All right. What's the most complex one you've ever seen? Because I know some people get a little crazy, like to the point where it's like, is the customer going to even read all of this? It's like the Apple terms and conditions.
Yeah.
Like, how bad has this gotten?
I mean, I've seen some pretty bad ones, especially, I don't even want to go into that, but we're in lots of different industries. So, the IT industry is our primary focus. I'm not going to lie when it comes to that. That's where John, the founder of the company, came from. That's where I came from. But we're in almost every industry out there, including like audio visual, even HVAC. One of my favorite stories, one of my first sales, yes, I had a sales hat, was to a lady that sold cookies out of her house, and she quoted using Quotewerks. So I know. So we're flexible, and we can be used in any scenario that you could possibly use that has line item based quoting. Now, the one exception to that is when it comes to insurance. I tell people we don't touch that, although there are insurance companies that use it, and that's probably where I've seen the most complex quote.
Oh, wow. Insurance, like all the disclaimers, could you imagine that get rolled into the insurance quote?
It's crazy. It really is.
Yeah, that's nuts. What about, is there any integration? You obviously put a lot of emphasis on integrations.
Yeah.
Like now what's big these days is like where you're shipping to and the sales tax collection required in order to do that, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm starting to hear that that's becoming a major pain in everybody's behind, because even like a lot of these distributors, like you get tax exempt, but now because you're shipping to another state outside of the place where you have exemption, you actually now are in a different boat, and it's a little bit harder to manage.
Right. And that's where integrations do come into play. So with Quotewerks, we have some very basic tax capabilities built in, and we're able to get tax rates that are updated pretty regularly. But it's not going to be, the full Avalara experience. Now, the reason I bring up Avalara is because we do have a partner using our API that has written an integration for Avalara with Quotewerks. And so you are able to get that full experience. You're able to get the line item detailed tax information because, here in Florida, taxes are easy when it comes to products for the most part. It's, services are not taxable, product is. That's essentially what it is, what it's like. But in other jurisdictions, that's not the way it is. And so using that Avalara integration, you're able to handle all of your taxing needs based on the ship to location.
Okay, now here's a magic question I think everybody's going to ask, other than how much does this cost? And we'll put that off to the side. But
yeah,
how long does it take to actually interact with the tool? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I've seen some pretty crappy quoting software out there over the years. It's like takes an hour to create what should be like a 5-minute job, and you're just watching this thing go like this, and it's like you want to punch the screen.
Well, I'll tell you this, we've never had a video game on our software while you're trying to do something. And some of you might know what I'm talking about, and I'll move on from there. So when it comes to, starting with the software, I mean, some people get it right away. It's especially, if you're used to using like Excel or Word to create a quote, it's going to be very easy to go down that path. But most people, it'll take them, our implementation takes about 2.5 to 3 hours. We'll do that for you as if you purchase our implementation service. And after that, you're pretty much able to start creating quotes. We'll do some basic training with that. But we will do more training options. But most people within a few hours are able to be very effective within the solution.
Okay. So that's that's kind of important. And then is this now delivered, I assume, as a like a SaaS solution, cloud-based, or like what's, do I have to put
Yeah.
this on a server? Like, how does this work?
Yeah, so Quotewerks has been around a long time. We started off as a desktop solution. We are now a hybrid solution. We're not just fully cloud, but by the end of the year, the plan is to be have a fully cloud option if that's what people want. That being said, the majority of our customers still are on-prem. I don't know. We do offer a cloud solution, so you're able to log into Quotewerks Web, do everything as a sales rep that you'd need to be able to do in the browser. Everything, we'll host the data for you. It synchronizes down. Everything works great. So, as opposed to with some minor stuff, so like layout design, you might have to use the desktop product, but it all synchronizes up. And like I said, by the end of the year, hopefully we'll have a solution for that as well.
Okay. So $1 million.
Well, so we're a little bit different than everybody else because we're not based on named users. We're based on concurrent users.
Oh,
Yeah. So, some companies, they'll have 10 sales reps, but they only need 3 licenses of our software because
that's slick.
well, yeah, because you're not always creating a quote, right? You should be out there, hitting the pavement, getting those deals signed, finding out what customers need. And then maybe a third of the time you'll be creating a quote, probably less. And so basically you're looking at, if you need the full stack, you're looking at about $100 a user per month.
It's not bad.
No, it really isn't. And that's the full stack. If you don't purchase from distribution, if you don't want the quote valet piece, you're going to cut that in half.
And like, do I got to sign a 3-year contract?
No, we don't believe in that. Actually, the nice thing is you can basically you can cancel at any time if you're on a monthly subscription. The other option that we offer people as well, because we do have an on-prem option, a lot of people still elect to buy the licenses outright, believe it or not. I mean, it's significantly less expensive over the long haul. But if you're not sure what you want, you can go month to month and then be like, you know what, this really is working out for me. Let's go ahead and purchase the licenses ourselves.
Interesting. Wow. 88,000 users.
Yes, in 101 countries.
Whoa. How do you handle the currency thing? I assume you got to have multi-currency built in.
We do have multi-currency support, yes. And we handle all the fun decimals and everything else as well.
Well, some of these places don't even have decimals, let's be honest.
That's true too.
Ever been to Iceland? You should see what the pricing looks like. You gotta
I know.
You gotta pull up the calculator every time. And that was just layover, right? You're like, how much does this Coke Zero cost? Is it like 10,000? Is it $1? What's going on here? So let's flip to the other side. So by the way, awesome, love it. By the way, you guys have been around for a long time. Obviously, the company's grown. Like, this is the true, like, hey, I bootstrapped the company. I built it up over time. 88,000 users, pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're independent too. That's the other thing that kind of sets us apart from a lot of other, we'll just say, quoting tools out there these days, is the fact that we are not, beholden to any other company. So the nice thing is like, we see the good things in all the different, PSA solutions out there and all the different vendors out there. We also see all the bad things about all of them as well. But we don't discriminate. And we integrate with all of them. And we keep adding more functionality with every single one. So, just recently we added something new for Autotask. We have something new coming out with ConnectWise soon as well. So, we're always adding new functionality. So it's not like, oh, we're owned by this company, so we're not going to do anything with this solution anymore. Those users will be happy. No, we don't do that. I didn't use names.
That never happens.
No, never.
No, everybody just plays fun in the sandbox, right?
Exactly.
It's, longevity counts, by the way. I do believe that. And quite
Yep.
frankly, yeah, I mean, sometimes people don't play fun in the sandbox, but at some point it seems to always work its way out eventually.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. I think that as people have been playing in the sandbox as long as some of us have, we realize that in a year or two from now, that same person might be working for somebody else. And so you should probably think about what you're going to say or what you're going to do, and just because you never know where you're going to end up.
Eh,
Unlike me, who has been here forever, but that's a whole other story.
Listen, if you're there, you obviously like what you're doing. Let's be
I do.
honest.
It's a great company. It really is, and great people. Speaking of great people, our tech support is probably some of the best in the industry. I don't know. I mean, you've been around. One of the things that's nice about us is the fact that we're real people. You can pick up the phone and give us a call. We're US based when it
I was
comes
gonna
to.
say, where's that forwarding to?
It's all US based here in Orlando, Florida. You can we do offer tickets, but you can definitely give us a call and talk to a real person within minutes. And it's not like you're on hold for 30 minutes either. Usually the whole time is like 3 to 5 minutes max.
I mean, do you offer discounted theme park tickets too? I mean, what's going
Not us, no,
on?
no.
Okay.
But
All right.
I can definitely show you around if you need to.
I gotcha. We're in Orlando. I feel like every other event's in Orlando. I might as well just have you on speed dial. What's going on? Like, you guys do an in-person event every once in a while too, right?
Yeah, so our last in-person event was literally a week before the world shut down.
Wow.
I know.
Good
So
timing, I guess.
yeah, it was very interesting. We had people canceling at the last minute. We're like, what's going on? But so right now we're doing a lot of virtual events as far as for ourselves, but we will have in-person events. We're planning on hopefully next year we'll be coming back to in-person events. But what we also do as well is for some of the larger events out there, like the IT Nation Connects and DattoCons, we'll do trainings before those events as well.
There you go. Piggybacking off the fact that people are paying to travel, which is important because I feel like it's getting more expensive.
It definitely is.
But especially if you're not buying in that sweet spot, that 45 days out, right?
Right.
So 23 years, you've been to a lot of events, you've heard a lot of crazy stories, you may have been involved in a few of them. I don't know. What would you say is your craziest IT channel story that you can come to mind? Like you wouldn't believe it. Like when people ask me what my craziest story is, it's not about an IT channel story. It's about getting pulled over, standing in line, buying stamps at a post office. I mean, I can tell you this with a straight face because it sounds ridiculous, but it happened.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that, I probably shouldn't talk about a lot of my crazy
All right,
stories.
what's one that you can talk about? How about that?
Yeah, that's really, I don't have that many crazy stories that I feel comfortable talking about. I'll be
Okay.
honest with you.
That means you need to find Brian at the bar at the next event, and then all of a sudden you're gonna hear about it.
Yeah, we'll just go with that.
Okay, fair enough. You've definitely been at, I feel like you've been at every major conference in Orlando since I can remember running into you at the first one. Definitely at the IT Nation in November, because that's the one that anchors the year.
Right.
And by the way, kind of convenient that you're in Orlando and like all of a sudden that's where everybody ends up. Did you have anything to do with that? I don't know what's going on.
I did not. But ironically enough, we just moved our office, but prior to this move, we could see the IT Nation Hotel from our office, which was always a fun event. Yeah, so it's really interesting that there are so many events here in Orlando. But
I feel like it's about at least a third, maybe half.
yeah, definitely. I mean, well, I remember like 10 years ago, every single event was in Vegas. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'm happy that things are on our coast. I'm definitely not going to as many events.
I
Oh,
think
go ahead.
people figured out that Vegas is where people go not to go to your show. They just say they're there.
Exactly. I mean, how many times do when you're not at the show, you see people, walking down the strip or whatever. I mean, it's just crazy.
I
But
feel like Vegas is the place where it's the hardest place to have an event.
yeah,
I understand it may be cheaper to do it there, but people don't show up. It defeats the purpose.
exactly, exactly.
I
Um,
guess on the Orlando side, they could end up at either Disney World or Sea World or what's the other guy?
Universal.
There you go,
Yeah.
Universal. I guess there's the space Kennedy Space Center or whatever over there. And there's there's Alligator Land. I mean, there's just so many things to do.
Yeah, well, and the thing is though, here you're not just, walking right out the hotel and you're right there, for the most part, unless you're at your event is at Universal, your event is at Disney. For the most part, you're gonna have to get into a car, whereas in, Vegas, you just walk right out there and you're in the middle of everything. So
Yeah, the strip is a little, but looks like it's not that far of a walk. It's deceiving.
yeah, definitely.
There's a reason why there's buses, shuttles, and trains going up and down the strip.
Exactly.
Um, it'll be curious because you've been now through 2008. You've now been through the pandemic.
Mhm.
We're now kind of in a potentially financial bad area, so they say now.
Right.
It's like you've seen this now, because I assume that with all of the users and companies on your platform, you can tell the volume of quotes, right? They're either quoted or closed, and have a little bit of a macro view. I don't know, maybe not, but what are you seeing? What's your prognostication now, right? Because I feel like people are like, well, I don't know. All these big companies are cutting people. And everybody's, even the smaller guys are like, well, I can't not pay attention to that, right? Like the interest rate's super high now.
Yep.
So leasing isn't maybe the most attractive thing. And you're starting to see maybe a slowdown in ordering and buying because people are like, well, I don't know where things are going to be in 30, 60, 90, 120 days, right?
I think it really depends. And why I say it depends is because, those that work in lots of different industries, I think are going to be pretty safe. Those that are focused on one or two industries, those are the ones that might have some issues moving forward. I always recommend, having some diversity in your customer base. For that reason, that's one of the reasons why we have been successful ourselves, especially like in 2008. That was our 2008 2009 was our worst year ever, as a company. But that being said, we've always been on a growth trajectory, and we've always recovered because we are in all these different industries. So when one industry has a problem, the other one, there's usually another industry that's picking up. And so that's what I would say. The other thing too, especially when it comes to a quoting aspect and from a team aspect, you want to look at making sure that you are, you don't have too many people on the bench, so to speak. So as you need to get leaner, you have to look at how you're going to handle that and, what tools you're going to use to do that. And I think that, that's true with your own company as well as other company, the companies that you're going to be working with as well. So I think if you find that aspect and that niche to get in there to make them more efficient, I think that's going to be the way to go, even as we have issues possibly in the future.
I gotta think there's issues.
Yeah.
Let's hope they're not bad and not recoverable. But I mean, it's when banks start having problems, I think that's a pretty clear sign we could have some issues coming.
Well, I think what's going to be interesting is with the work from home and how many people are not in offices now. That's where real estate for commercial and banks is going to be interesting over the next few years, I think.
Yeah, like these leases that are coming off the 8, 9, 10-year leases, right? Like, what are they going to do? Up here in the Northeast, some of these, they're talking about malls converting into like Amazon fulfillment centers.
Right.
I mean, it's not, yeah, I guess.
I mean, you got to do something with the space, right? And the infrastructure is there, so you might as well do something with it. I mean, we've seen it here, where businesses just aren't renewing their leases. And you've got empty floors in big office buildings, so it's you got to pay that rent, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
But in Florida, where you don't have enough housing to handle the income of people that are net new to the state, you could convert those into living space.
I suppose so.
I mean, like you're seeing the same thing I'm seeing, right? Like somebody said on a call not too long ago, there's 1,000 new people moving to Florida a day.
Yeah, it really is crazy. I mean, we saw a big spike, during the beginning of the pandemic as people started to move from like the Northeast as well as from California. Where I live, Disney is making a big change where they're moving, I think it's something like 2,000 Imagineers from California over to Orlando. So I mean, it's definitely a boom, but I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, like I said, over the next few years.
Yeah, all they can tell me is that the traffic's worse.
Yeah. And we don't have good public transportation either. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, Disney has a good bus system. Maybe they can teach everybody how to do it, huh?
yeah.
Just saying. And then the other thing I noticed while I'm in town, by the way, the electric charging thing isn't all it's cracked up to be. It's a little hard to get that car charge for you to turn it into the rental place.
I don't know anything about that, to be honest with you. So
Stick to gas. I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, I appreciate your time. For anyone that wants to find more information about Quotewerks yourself, find you online, where do they get?
Yeah, I mean, I would just go to quotewerks.com. That's WERKS, by the way, QUOTEWERKS. You can go to quotingsoftware.com as well if that's easier for you. That's the best place to go. You can also give us a call, 407-248-1481. We've got plenty of information on our website. We don't, make it so it's hard to find information. There's no wall where you have to put in, your contact information. Everything is right there for you. We're very open and we're available to answer any questions that you might have.
Awesome. Well, be sure at the next event, Brian at the bar, crazy stories. He has them, I promise you.
You might be involved in a few of those, George.
I don't know what you're talking about. All right, pal. See you at the next one.
All right, man. Talk to you later.
You got
Bye.
it.